I'd like to, well, thank you all for coming. I think this is a really fantastic conference. It's great to be here for a second time. It's great to be part of the Green Surge program. I have the happy job of leading the anaesthetic part of the program, which is odd because I haven't, as I say, passed gas for nearly 20 years now. But nevertheless, as a perioperative researcher, in particular in applied health research, and the work we're doing here is really very applied research, I've been very fortunate to be involved. So we are leading a project called Noble, but we're also generally talking in this session about the impacts that anaesthesia can have on the environment and the opportunities that gives us to reduce the environmental impact of healthcare involving surgery. And we're going to talk about a trial called Noble, which seizes a really niche opportunity that we're seeing in the UK in the NHS with the decommissioning of piped nitrous oxide and switching that to cylinder nitrous oxide, which is what we used when I were a lad training in anaesthesia. And I think there's a sort of, if I can make sort of one comment about all of this, is I can remember a time when you went to the supermarket and they gave you a paper carrier bag. I can remember a time when milk only came in reusable bottles. I can remember a time where they didn't have piped nitrous oxide. It was all in cylinders. I can remember a time when we didn't have disposable drapes. We can go on and on and on. This change has happened very, very recently in our system. Now, some of the sort of younger folk in the audience, I'm not that old, some of the younger folk won't remember that, but this is really recent change. And we have the opportunity to flick it back and impose that. And a lot of this change, I didn't ask for a plastic carrier bag. They just gave me one. I didn't ask for a plastic milk bottle. They just gave me one. We didn't ask for piped nitrous oxide. It just appeared. So I think there's a message there about the involvement of clinicians, but also patients. Patient voice is really crucial because they are almost always our ally in these initiatives. To really explain that when you're changing how our system works, the system that we run every single day, that we really, really understand, just talk to us about the impacts that that has and how we balance not only the cost of healthcare that we deliver, but also the environmental cost of healthcare. And I'm very used as a researcher to talking about the number of pounds sterling we spend to deliver one quality adjusted life year of healthcare. How many tons of CO2 should we spend to deliver one quality adjusted life year? And starting to think in that way about the environment as well as about cost. So we've got a really fantastic session, and I've got a really fantastic panel. I'll just ask them to introduce themselves, starting with Cliff.
So my name's Cliff. I'm a consultant anaesthetist in Wythenshawe in Manchester, and I spend the rest of the week at Lancaster University.
Cliff Shelton. Anna?
I'm Anna Wozniak. I'm CT1, a trainee in anaesthetics in Ipswich Hospital and co-investigator for the Noble trial.
Tiana?
I'm Dr. Tiana Serafimova. I'm an academic clinical fellow in intensive care medicine in the east of London, and I'm also co-investigating on the Noble trial.
I should say Anna and Tiana are doing all the work. And they are doing an absolutely superb job as well. And last but not least, James.
Hi, I'm James. I'm a lecturer here in surgery, so I've got even less deserving reason to be here than Rupert's critical care physician.
Yeah, no beating up on the surgeons, guys. Okay, so we'll start off with Cliff, who's going to talk a little bit about the technical side of how we do this. And those who don't know, Cliff is really, really expert on this and is a great thought leader in how we deliver environmental change in perioperative care. So, Cliff.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to talk to you. Do I just press this button or does it just happen? Let's try. Hey, okay. I'm going to talk to you about some research opportunities for green anaesthesia, and I've got 5 minutes to do it. So estimated anaesthesia time, 5 minutes. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so very, very briefly, just draw this link between anaesthesia and planetary harms. I'm going to talk to you about 3 priority areas, and I'm going to finish with a little call to action, I think, about what I think we should be doing next. So as an anaesthetist, I spend a lot of my time sat at a machine like this, twiddling with some twiddly knob things, and they are attached to These things, volatile anesthetic agents, they're a kind of greenhouse gas. And these things, which are oxygen, air, and nitrous oxide. And you're going to hear more about nitrous oxide because that's also a greenhouse gas, and it's the most important one that we work with. So if anesthesia's got a claim to infamy when it comes to interactions with planetary health, it's probably these things. We are one of the few medical specialties that emit greenhouse gases directly at the point of care. But we shouldn't forget about all the other stuff we do. We absolutely love bits of equipment as an anaesthetist. This is an airway trolley, for example, and all of that is disposable. Use it once and chuck it away. And we also really like giving patients cocktails of drugs, okay, lots of different medications. And I think these are probably our three most accessible opportunities. Now, there's a special thing about anaesthesia, which is that it's not that there's no evidence for anything that we do. We've really tried to find the difference between one anaesthetic drug and another, or one anaesthetic technique and another, but it's very hard to find that in expert hands, one drug or one technique is clinically superior to another one. But this is quite an opportunity when it comes to this area of practice, because actually you can give the drug on the right or the drug on the left, and you can pretty much guarantee now, based on the evidence that we've got, that the patient is going to have the same good quality clinical outcome, and you're going to get the same number of patients done. And this kind of underpins what we've managed to achieve in anaesthesia. This is from the Greener NHS dashboard website. It's only for NHS eyes. Please don't take a picture and share it on the internet. But you can see that this is the carbon equivalent footprint attributable to volatile gases and what we as a profession have achieved in terms of altering our practice. We have had some targets to meet from NHS England, but we've managed to exceed them ahead of time every time they've managed to set one. And that's really impressive because making change happen in the NHS is really hard, number one, and it tells you a little bit, number two, about the value of grassroots action. This is nitrous oxide. It's still going down, isn't it? But nothing like as fast. And my colleagues are going to tell us why. But this is really the big thing that we need to deal with in anaesthesia. And those of you who are into graphs will notice that actually the graphs are on different axes ever so slightly. And so nitrous is a bigger problem than volatiles ever were. And it continues to be a big problem nowadays. So opportunity number one, gases, in particular nitrous. Second one, stuff. We've heard this from Rupert already, but there's a worrying trend in the stuff that we use in anaesthesia, and I think it's the same in all branches of healthcare. This is a laryngeal mask airway from 20 years ago. It's made of plastic, but it's reusable. This is a laryngeal mask airway from 10 years ago. It's still made of plastic, but it's disposable. I think in different countries it's still reusable, but we've moved from something that's reusable to something that's disposable. And then we've gone to laryngeal mask of today, which is still disposable, but it's fancy. It's got some added features. And most medical technologies and medical equipment are following this pattern. So I think it's a big question for us to add, what value is that really adding, apart from to the companies that make the stuff? So that's priority number two. And then drugs. Now, we use electronic patient records at our hospital. Couldn't find an anaesthetic chart that I could get you to read, so I just searched the internet for an anaesthetic chart. This is one off a case report. And in terms of the drugs that we use, I just want to highlight how many things are involved in giving a routine anaesthetic. What were these 12 drugs used for? To give somebody a knee replacement. So this is a routine job done with this many drugs, and it doesn't have to be. This is the practice that we have adopted. And these drugs, actually, this must have been a good anaesthetic because they didn't use any emergency drugs, but there was probably 3 or 4 things that were never even used but were drawn up at the start of the list just in case the patient got sick. So opportunity number 3. But I think we probably need to take a step outside our immediate area of practice as anaesthetists. And my call to action for you is to get outside the operating theatre. So one way you can do that is to look at the guts of the hospital. We're going to talk about nitrous oxide in a bit, but this is an interesting thing. This is an anaesthetic gas scavenging system. Every time you use those gases, it needs a machine, which is constantly running in most operating theatres, to hoover them away from the patient and the staff, and it just emits them out into the air. So it's not an environmental thing in a big picture way, it's about local environment. But if we used those gases less, we wouldn't need these things. So you can think about how your practice applies not just to the patient in front of you, but to the hospital around you and the whole system. Second thing, you've seen what we've managed to achieve in anaesthesia in terms of behaviour change, so collaborate with us. I think we've got a really good multidisciplinary group just here. If you want to find someone in your hospital who's made a change, look for the person who sorted desflurane out. It's quite a controversial thing, desflurane, at the moment, but the people who've achieved that behaviour change have got a skill that you can use, and they're going to be happy to share it. And then the third thing is, I mistitled this talk, didn't I? I referred to green anaesthesia. That actually doesn't exist. There's nothing that we do in the operating theatre that's green. And so our skills that we use for things like perioperative medicine and prehabilitation, I think could be utilised to actually stop people from getting sick in the first place and make sure that we're just giving high-value care. So that's the end from me. Thank you very much.
Cliff, thank you. So I'm going to hand over to Tiona and Anna, who are fantastic ICU and anaesthesia trainees who've done an awful lot of work in getting the Noble trial set up very, very quickly so we can seize this opportunity with the NHS England programme to decommission nitrous oxide.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Tiona Serafimova and I am an academic clinical fellow in intensive care medicine. You will also be hearing from my colleague Dr. Anna Wozniak, and we are two of the co-investigators on the Noble trial. Today we'll be taking you through the Noble trial, which stands for nitrous oxide management to balance healthcare and environmental needs. Before we start, I'd like to briefly mention that we have no conflicts of interest, and I'd also like to take a moment to thank Professor Pearce, the CI for the trial, the wider Noble team, and the Birmingham Clinical Trials Unit, who have been absolutely instrumental in us getting this trial off the ground. So the challenge we are facing, as you've already heard, is that the NHS is aiming to be the first net zero healthcare service in the world by 2045. To achieve this, multiple changes will need to be made, as we're already aware. And if you see here, we can see that in Scope 1, one of the key targets is anaesthesia. Specifically, the NHS long-term plan involves lowering the carbon footprint from NHS gases by 40%. And although there has already been positive change in this regard, there's still more work to be done, as Cliff already mentioned. So one key target for reducing the environmental impact of anaesthesia is the anaesthetic gas nitrous oxide, as we've heard. Nitrous oxide remains in the atmosphere for over 100 years, and its breakdown products contribute to the depletion of the ozone layer. It's currently supplied to most UK hospitals via a pipeline system, which results in more than 80% of the gas being wasted. There are other reasons why moving away from a pipeline system is beneficial. The maintenance of these pipelines is highly resource intensive, as they require regular maintenance and repair. They're extremely prone to leaks and waste, as we've already heard. And they are also supplied by very large cylinders, which are usually only partly used. Subsequently, any remaining nitrous oxide is actually vented to the atmosphere, which only increases the impact. As a result, there is frequent oversupply. By contrast, nitrous oxide can also be delivered via portable cylinders. This is the main method by which nitrous oxide used to be delivered, and the manifold system we have today is a relatively modern development. While it's clear that moving away from a pipeline system is likely to have a positive impact on the NHS and its net zero target, what we don't know is whether this change would have any impact on patient outcomes, which fundamentally needs to be at the centre of our decision making. Therefore, our trial objective is to establish whether delivering nitrous oxide via portable cylinders impacts patient outcomes post-surgery as compared to nitrous oxide delivery via pipeline manifold system. I'll now briefly take you through the trial design. This is a national, multi-centre, cluster randomised control trial. Now, what this means is that randomisation will occur at the level of the hospital, and this is because the intervention involves an infrastructural change. There will be no patient-level randomisation. It's also important to note that all the participating hospitals will complete both the pipeline and the portable cylinder phase of the trial. Going through a PICO framework, you can see that the population we are interested in is all patients, including children, undergoing any surgical procedure involving general anaesthesia within NHS hospitals. The intervention is nitrous oxide delivery via a portable cylinder, and our comparator will be nitrous oxide via the standard pipeline manifold system found in most hospitals. Our primary outcome measure will be days alive and at home at 30 days after surgery. Here you can see a simplified flow diagram showing how the study will be conducted. You have a pre-trial phase, which allows sites time to prepare for the study to start. Each hospital will then be randomized to either pipeline nitrous oxide or cylinder nitrous oxide. Data will be collected for 4 weeks. Then there is a 1-week transition phase where each hospital will switch to the other mode of nitrous oxide delivery. And then there will be a further 4 weeks of data collection followed by a washout period. In terms of our outcome measures, as I mentioned, the primary outcome measure will be days alive and at home in 30 days after surgery. And the secondary outcomes that we will include whether nitrous oxide was used during the surgery, mortality, major complications, duration of hospital stay, and health economic measures. And now I will hand you over to my colleague, Dr. Anna Wozniak, who will take you through the trial intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tiona. So again, I'm Anna, and I'm going to take you through the more nitty-gritty parts of the trial intervention. So as you know, the two arms of the nitrous oxide trial will focus on the methods of nitrous oxide delivery. During one phase, we will use the pipeline system, which is basically the setup in our current participating sites. And during the other phase, we will use portable cylinders to deliver nitrous oxide to theatres. The practicalities of attaching the nitrous oxide cylinder to the anesthetic machine will depend on the clinical setting and the clinical use at the particular site or theatre. Some anesthetic machines accept the cylinders with no issues. Some will need a cylinder holder, and some will need a portable cylinder on the mobile trolley. And we actually think that this will be the most popular option because it is relatively cheap and also allows for sharing in between several theatres. So as you can see, in red, there are some safety features highlighted on the cylinder and mobile trolley. So D is a bungee cord that attaches the cylinder on the trolley to the anesthetic machine. The trolley has a weighted base to prevent tipping. That is actually quite a significant hazard. And we also have a chain that keeps the cylinder in place. So that's all good, but obviously I mentioned quite a few pieces of equipment that needs to be purchased. So how much does it cost? I'm going to take an example from one of the Manchester hospitals who made this change already. And this table basically represents cost and savings of setting up 10 cylinders on the mobile trolleys that were shared across 5 different operating theatres. And this data has been collected by Dr. Shelton over around 7 months. So as you can see, the trolleys, all the safety features of them, and small size e-cylinders costed just over £4,000. However, if you look a bit closer, you can see that as they moved away from supplying the pipeline system, they no longer needed the G-size cylinders, so the massive cylinders that sit in a manifold, which saves them around £8,000. So overall, after the initial investment, you can expect financial break-even within a few months, and actually long-term, you can expect quite significant savings. And this same trust, actually, the annual cost of nitrous oxide procurement after they decommissioned the piped nitrous oxide fell by £13,000. So we're currently in the pre-trial phase in the flowchart, if you remember that. And the most important thing for this trial to be a stepping stone for the decommissioning of piped nitrous oxide in long term is the preparation. So if you're interested in this trial, this is your time to think what modifications are feasible in your hospital. Best people to ask is the anaesthetist or the ODPs. And once you know that, you need some initial investment, as I mentioned. So the NHS England grant is something that we encourage all our participating sites to apply for. Once those 2 main steps are done, you have to communicate with your colleagues and find allies to deliver this trial. You might drop it in the coffee room conversation, discuss during departmental meetings, and just find people who will help you in this trial. So, as we presented, there are 2 phases of the trial intervention. The pipeline phase will not require that much preparation because that's the current setup in the participating sites. However, the transition to nitrous oxide using portable cylinders need to be very smooth. We allow each hospital around a week of preparation period, and during that time, the portable cylinders need to be installed using the method agreed on. The sites need to liaise with the software engineers because the anesthetic machine software need to be adjusted to prevent any pressure alarms if the smallest cylinder is attached. Again, communication with the stakeholders, so sending out email to your departmental colleagues, speak with ODPs and theatre staff. We also suggest to mount posters near the terminal units, which are basically the port for piped nitrous oxide, to make sure that there is an explanation of why we're making this change and what is the alternative source of the nitrous oxide. And once all these three first steps are done, you can cap off the terminal units to ensure compliance with the portable cylinders. A quick mention on the data collection. As you can see, this is non-identifiable routine data that is collected by anesthetists on the anesthetic charts. So there is no kind of patient details included there. We will also collect major postoperative complication using Clavin-Dindo scale. And the reason we're highlighting this is because we want to show you that this is very simple data collection, and actually we encourage our sites to include resident doctors and medical students to take part in this process, as well as other members of MDT. And that's it. There's still some time to get involved, so if you want to contact us, if you would like your site to take part, you can either email us or scan the QR code. Thank you so much.
Anna and Tiana, thank you. That really fantastic presentation of what I think is a really interesting trial and a great example of how we can seize the opportunity of change that's happening anyway to provide evidence and show that that change is, the impact that that change is having. And we just had a really productive meeting with colleagues from NHS England. We were talking about the fact that this is a change that's happening in the UK before the rest of the world. And so we can provide data that informs transitions towards a greener approach to healthcare that isn't just in the UK and the NHS, but has implications worldwide. And of course, it doesn't really matter whether nitrous oxide is being vented, whether it's in London or whether it's in Melbourne, it's still having the same impact on all of our climate. So those kinds of precedents, I think, are really, really important. It's really great the NHS is being a role model for that. I'm now going to hand over to James, who on the subject of a global engagement is going to present a video from our colleagues in India.
Yes,
James,
thank you very much. I think we can have the video on. So Christina George is Professor of Anaesthesia in Ludhiana in India. Has prepared a video for us today. And it really acknowledges that the priorities for research and quality improvement in this area may be different in different places in the world. So I'll hand over to Christina, if I may. Sorry, we haven't got the video at the moment. It's just for AV team. Might be the other screen.
I'm Christina George.
Still no video, I'm afraid.
If it doesn't come soon, we're going to make James dance to the music.
Don't tempt me. Perhaps I'll give a bit of a backdrop. So Christina's launched with a new global anaesthesia collaboration through the Greener Global Hospitals Group, identified partners in the 7 existing low middle income country hubs who are key anaesthetic leaders within countries. So they're either the head of national critical care or anaesthetic societies, key leaders within hospitals, and they've outreached to their hubs and spokes network and found individuals to come forwards and help prioritise research in this area. I believe so far there's been 1 voting round, and there's been about 1,300 responses from 81 countries, which is really exciting. So we're looking forward to hearing more from Christina now.
anaesthetist and a professor at the Department of Anesthesia, Christian Medical College, Ludhiana, India. And I'm privileged to be the nationally coordinating investigator for the ongoing PENPED trial, where presently we have recruited 5,000 and more patients. The Global Surgery Network has now established perioperative groups to address patient safety and outcomes by engaging anesthetists and non-anesthesia providers across the research hubs and spokes network. Over the last few months, we have been actively engaging in establishing a green perioperative group aiming to identify and assess a qualitative improvement project assessing the current anesthetic practices in different countries, how they impact the environment, with special mention of desflurane and nitrous oxide, and how they can make these sustainable.
Among the vaporizers, desflurane with its high global warming potential, and among the gases, nitrous oxide with its ozone depleting potential, are agents we need to rethink the use of and probably replace with available options. Switching to regional anesthesia and intravenous techniques wherever feasible can make a difference. Plastic waste generated from drug syringes will be our next concern. Finally, the anesthetic scavenging system on the machine, being an open system, contributes to the environmental pollution. We have been constantly communicating with anesthetists actively involved in providing greener operating rooms. The national anesthetic leads of the Global Surgery Network have been part of our 3 steering group committee meetings. Data from the HIPPO trial have identified the diverse use of anesthetic practices for common surgeries like inguinal hernia, ranging from local, regional to general anesthesia.
With operating rooms contributing to 25 to 30% of the hospital's carbon emission, it is prudent for our surgeons and anesthetists to take the first steps in adopting feasible yet sustainable practices. So far, we have managed to design the survey as part of a 4-part Delphi, consisting of 2 rounds of voting and 2 rounds of discussion. Thank you for your time and patience.
So Christina sends her very best. I think she's caught up in the busy holiday period on call, so she wasn't able to join us today. But I think there's 3 key things that have come out of that survey so far, which I think are really interesting. The first is about a quarter of responses have been from first referral hospitals, so really basic district hospitals that are providing simple kind of bellwether type procedures, so fracture fixation, C-section, perhaps some abdominal surgery. So hopefully it'll be an interesting perspective to see how priorities differ across settings. The second is that a third of responses have been from non-physician anaesthesia providers. So of course the whole physician's associate thing in the UK is rather sort of social media popular at the moment, but this is critical anaesthesia being provided by non-physicians across different contexts. So again, I think it'd be very interesting to see how perspectives differ across those settings. And third is that some of the emergency priorities really at the moment seem to be around de-escalating anaesthesia care, particularly the use of general anaesthesia, reducing the use of gases. So some similar themes emerging. It'd be interesting to see what evolves, what can be shifted. I look forward to help supporting the green anaesthesia team globally.
James, thank you very much. So we've got a few minutes now for a panel discussion, and I can see there's already some questions coming up, which is great. Given though I suspect most of you are not anaesthetists in the audience, I was going to ask Anna and Tiona just to give a sort of generational perspective in a second, but if I may just quickly ask Cliff to give you a bluffer's guide to the physics of nitrous oxide. Now, everyone glazes over when I do this, but Cliff is a bit more upbeat about it, so I think he might be more engaging. But it's actually, well, I personally think it's really interesting, but it's actually really important in terms of the gearing of the environmental impact that nitrous has. So, Cliff.
Okay, so declarations. I'm not a climate scientist, but I am a bluffer, so let's go. So greenhouse gases, the famous one, the one that we're all most bothered about, is carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, like all greenhouse gases, absorbs radiation from the sun and re-emits it into our planet, and it would otherwise escape into space. So that's the kind of very basic version of how global warming happens. It's not the only greenhouse gas. There are other ones, things like methane and things like nitrous oxide are also greenhouse gases. And then there's smaller ones that include things like the anaesthetic agents that I showed you earlier on. There's a thing called global warming potential, which is a way for mostly policymakers, in fact, to kind of total up their carbon emissions and see how they're doing over time. And global warming potential gives you a sense for how much emitting a certain mass of a gas into the atmosphere would compare to emitting the same amount of CO2 over a certain time horizon. So the commonly used one is GWP 100, which means that over 100 years, how much would a kilogram of this stuff warm the atmosphere compared to a kilogram of CO2? There's all kinds of interesting critiques to this, and they tend to be focused on things that are emitted in small quantities. So nitrous isn't, that's a big one, and things that last a short period of time, because to exert your global warming effect, you need to get high enough up and far enough in order to do that. And if the gas is all gone within a short period of time, then the argument doesn't stack up as well. But nitrous is particularly important because, as my colleagues have pointed out, it's a multi-generational gas, so it's still there 100 years later. And when you sum up the amount of infrared radiation it absorbs and re-emits and integrate its time span, a kilogram of nitrous is equivalent to about 300 kilograms of CO2. And that's where all those big numbers come from. So that, I think, is a decent bluffer's guide. Is that okay? And if anybody would like to add anything more sciencey to that, please do feel free.
Well, that was pitched at my level, Clef, thank you. But also the physics of how it works in the cylinders is quite unusual, because it's a liquid. Yeah, you can see Anna giggling now at me. It's a liquid in the cylinder, and that's got something to do with the amount of waste that we end up having.
So there's a couple of things in terms of the physics which are relevant to why we have so much waste. And I've seen a couple of questions about, well, what explains this like mad level of waste that we have. One thing about it is that it's one of these gases that if you squash it enough at room temperature, it turns into a liquid. And then if you put a gauge on the top of it, which is our standard way of telling how much gas is in a cylinder, the number you get is something called the saturated vapor pressure. It's the pressure that's generated by the gas sitting on top of the liquid. And as you consume the gas, the amount of liquid goes down, but that pressure stays the same. So unlike an oxygen cylinder, where if the needle is halfway up the scale, it's half full and half empty, nitrous looks full, and then when there's hardly any left, it rapidly goes to empty. So you can start to see why, if you were in charge, if your job was keeping the nitrous topped up, if somebody had given you that job to do, you might be motivated, especially if it's quite cheap, which it is, to just replace it on a fixed time basis. And you might keep doing it, even if no one's using it. So stock rotation is a really big problem with nitrous, because our colleagues in facilities who have to keep it flowing often don't actually know how much is being used and how much is left. And so their motivation might just be to just keep replacing it weekly, twice weekly, daily, whatever it happens to be.
So a complete disconnect between the supply and the demand.
Indeed, yeah. And there's probably other drugs that work like that, but this is the one that's really drawn some attention, and you can start to see why.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful context. Anna, I wanted to ask you, as a sort of budding new anaesthetist, whether you sort of see any generational issues amongst trainee anaesthetists and sort of more older, shall we say, anaesthetists, about their perspective on these practices. And do you find that more junior colleagues are more environmentally focused in their practice, or what feedback can you give us around that?
So I think, generally speaking, I think younger generations are a bit more prone to be more convincible about using, for example, TIVA, so total intravenous anesthesia, over the gases. I think it depends from kind of the trust or site to site, but I can say that I can see a pattern that my older consultant colleagues very much still see the place for nitrous oxide, which is interesting because some others say that it's completely useless, you don't need it. So I think definitely my kind of generation is more convincible and maybe understands and cares a bit more. But again, I don't want to generalize because I don't want to demonize older colleagues. They have very important knowledge to share with us. But I think some of my younger kind of anesthetic trainee colleagues can agree that there is a pattern that older consultants are a bit more free with nitrous oxide.
Very careful use of terminology there. Just to follow that a little bit further through, Anna, I mean, Cliff talked about the number of different anaesthetic drugs that there are and how actually for quite a few of them there's 2 or 3 different alternatives of something that's pretty much the same, and there's no obvious difference in how they perform in terms of patient outcomes. So if we got rid of all of that redundancy, one gets the feeling that some senior colleagues might feel that the excitement and the fun of delivering anaesthetic is somehow lost, that their sort of creative flair would be a bit more limited. So do you fear the lack of opportunity for creative flair in anaesthesia if that happens?
For me in the future, if I have limited options, I don't think so, because it's still, as a beginner, and I'm trying to learn what is the best way, what is the best muscle relaxant to use and stuff. Some colleagues have very strong opinions, but some tell me, as you can see, the views are divided, so it actually doesn't matter. Like, it all works out, as said previously. You give different anesthetic, but the patient outcome is the same. It's still good. Coming back to your question, though, I don't think so. I don't think so, because there's still a little bit of art. You know, you add a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. You know, I don't think you're going to lose it.
So, I mean, I would encourage you to talk about that, because you'd be surprised how much senior doctors can be influenced by the progress in the way that patients are treated by junior colleagues. Tiana, one of the questions that we had from the audience was about why we need to do a trial. If this change is happening anyway, why don't we just let it happen? What's the point of Noble? What does it add?
So I think that's a good question. You know, it's very easy to say we're in this, you know, global climate emergency. We need to do absolutely everything possible to make healthcare greener. But ultimately, the reason we do healthcare is for patients, right? That is the number one priority. And I think it's easy to get carried away and say, change this, change that, make everything green, net zero, and actually forget that at the core of what we do is patient care. So my thoughts are, yes, it's an important change, but you know, I think it's even more important to just prove that there is no impact on patient outcomes before you roll out quite a substantial infrastructural change to hospitals across the country, because you know this is a big change and it's not permanent, but you know involves significant investment and time. And I guess the other thing to say is that the more evidence you have, the easier it is to convince those colleagues who are maybe a little bit reticent, or you know, are just not convinced, or maybe we have colleagues who are concerned about the patient safety aspect. So ultimately, I think having evidence is vital to confirm that there's no impact on patients, but also to bring along any kind of naysayers or those people who have doubts to make it as impactful as possible.
That's really interesting. So do you see, say, if anaesthesia provided a role model example of how you could change anaesthesia delivery without having any negative impact on patient care, can you see that impacting, say, the way a physician might deliver the care that they deliver, or a gastroenterologist? Or do you think that it would set a precedent in other aspects of the NHS?
I mean, I think definitely. I think anaesthesia has been a real, you know, very progressive compared to other specialties in terms of looking at how healthcare can be delivered in a greener way. But you know, all other aspects of, you know, hospitals, but also GPs and people in the community need to also have these considerations and think about how they can assess their practice and change it as well.
But is it plausible that changing from pipeline to cylinder is going to make any difference at all?
To patient outcomes.
Uh-huh.
So my feeling is there should be no change to patient outcomes, but I still think it's a point worth proving, because my supposition or my assumption is not really enough to go on, to change things nationwide. I think probably having some data is important just to confirm that.
I mean, certainly I have some colleagues who passionately believe that it's going to be a negative thing, and you only need a few consultants in a consultant group to stop that change happening, even if the great majority want that change. James, I'd be really interested in the other side of the blood-brain barrier. I mean, sorry, did I say that out loud? I mean, what do you think the importance of having, sort of the multidisciplinary, the multi-professional team all thinking about the environmental impact of the perioperative care that they're delivering? Should we just focus on one bit? Should we just focus on the drapes first, fix that, then move to the next thing? Or how do you think the best approach for all of that is?
Thanks. That's a great question. It really fits with the themes of today. So what I've been hearing consistently is that we need to zoom out, that this is a team sport, and unless we work together, we're not going to accelerate change quickly enough. I think the surgeon and anaesthetist together in the operating theatre, when they work in harmony, it's a very powerful force. Occasionally you see clashes between surgeons and anaesthetists, usually because of difficult surgeons, not difficult anaesthetists, I have to say, in my experience, but some are both ways, for giving a political answer. But so I think together we could be a powerful force for change. And in the end, my interest is in patient benefit. Here we're talking about kind of public benefit, which is a slightly strange concept actually for us as clinical researchers. You're talking about the carbon cost that was acceptable for a quality adjusted life year. I think that's got profound ethical, moral and practical implications. And I think to thrash those ideas out, we need to think big, involve. I've spoken to some wonderful ODPs today, managers. We have to think big and work together, would be my hot take.
Thank you. I mean, certainly I would agree that when you get a senior consultant, a senior anaesthetist pairing who are experienced and worked together for a long time, they can be a very powerful leadership force in terms of role modelling change and really positive impact, certainly.
And at trainee level, of course, as well.
Yes, for sure. Although trainees move around a lot more, and that maybe the other colleagues within that operating theatre may not get to know them quite so well, whereas that presence, that constant presence of consultants can be very important, I think. So we're getting near to the end of the session now, but a couple of things to say before we close. Noble is using an opportunity of a change that's happening anyway, that's been primarily led by NHS England. Those of you who work in Scotland will know that NHS Scotland has already made this switch without any sort of major adverse effects. We're now seeing that happen in NHS England, and it's really great that we're able to work with the NHS England Net Zero team to study this change as it's happening. And to do that, we've had to work at absolutely breakneck speed to get the Noble trial set up. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to Rachel, Divya and Felicity, who have managed to set this trial up. It's the fastest trial I have ever seen. I've been doing this for a while now. I've never seen a randomized trial set up in quite such speed. So just a really big thank you. Now, we've got most of the hospitals we need, but we still do have a few spaces. So if any of you are anaesthetists and you're interested in taking part, I can tell you we're very close to having ethics approval. Ethics meeting was last week, and we're hoping to start opening sites in January if we can manage it. So the trial is imminent, but there's still time to take part if you'd like to. If you've got anaesthetic colleagues, twist their arm, bring them on board so we can get all the sites we need. So it'll be absolutely brilliant to have you on board. Thank you very much.